Hi, awesome artists. I'm unable to be in the art room today, so you will have a substitute. Please make sure you are listening carefully to all directions on my video and doing your best artwork for the sub today. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Today we're going to be talking about 4 parts of a landscape, or something called perspective. Perspective, what is it? Well, perspective is how our eyes view the world. Perspective can change depending on where your body is located, and depending on your position, objects you see may appear small, medium, or large in size. Let's take a look at the 4 parts of a landscape, or the things that make up perspective. First, we need a horizon line. That's where the sky meets the ground. In this picture, the horizon line is kind of bumpy or gently waved because it's a mountainscape. The horizon line can also be straight. The foreground. Those objects are the things that appear first or in the front. Objects in the foreground will look large because we are standing right next to them and our eyes see them first. The middle ground are all the objects that will appear medium in size, as our eyes see them second. The background is where items will appear very small, as they are way off in the distance and our eyes see them last. However, my perspective can change if my body position changes. So if I start at the front of this path in the picture and begin to walk, the trees that are large in the foreground will start to get smaller as I walk away from them, and the trees in the background will start to look larger as I get closer to them. Let's take a look at this scarecrow drawing. I'm going to ask you a few questions. I will pause and let you answer together as a class. Question 1. What objects or items appear in the foreground of this picture? If you said scarecrow, you're right. The scarecrow is large in the front and our eyes see it first. What objects appear in the middle ground of this picture? If you talked about the pumpkins and the hay bales, you're right. They're sandwiched between the scarecrow, which is in the foreground, and the items in the background. They're medium in size, middle ground. All right, what objects are in the background of this picture? If you talked about the barn and the birds, the clouds, the sun, you're right. All those items are in the background. They're way off in the distance. They appear smaller because our eyes see them last. How about the horizon line? Is it wavy or flat? If you said wavy, you're right. This field has some sloping lines to it, so it looks slightly wavy. Remember, the horizon line is where the sky meets the ground. When an artist uses perspective, it helps us show space. It helps us to show the viewer when we make art that things are starting off large, closer to us, and getting smaller as they disappear, giving the viewer the feel of space and distance. All right, now that we've focused on perspective, let's go ahead and talk about the next part of art class today. All right, awesome artists. Today we will be working on a practice drawing using perspective. We just talked about perspective when we viewed our Google Slides, and now we're going to take our Mr. Sketch markers, a dark violet colored piece of paper, and a table protector to complete this practice drawing. Please make sure that you have your Mr. Sketch markers placed in the middle of your table so all artists can reach, and you have your violet construction paper going vertical or the tall way, and it's placed on a table protector so we can protect the table. All right, first things first, we're going to take our brown Mr. Sketch marker and write our name and class code in the corner. Your name and your class code in the corner. Remember, your class code is 2T. Then flip your paper over. All right, now let's start by creating some perspective. Remember, items in the foreground are large because our eyes see them first. On the left-hand side of my paper, I'm going to draw a spooky looking tree. To begin, I'm going to take my brown marker and I'm going to start about 2 fingerprints away from the side of my paper and draw a line coming down. It's slightly curving and starts about in the center of the side of my paper. Then I'm going to lay 3 fingerprints next door to the brown line I just made so that I can draw another line that is parallel or right next door to the first line I drew. Now we are going to place a large letter V inside the 2 lines we made with our marker. Notice how the V dips down into my 2 lines. This is the start of my tree trunk. Now I'm going to go over to this side and create another V. I'm going to bring up this line so it starts to curve. Now I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Bring up my line so it starts to curve, place a V. These V's are a little smaller than the first V. Let's go ahead and start to fill this in. Let's farmer color. So remember, up and down the rows, filling up all the blank spaces of our paper. In this case, we're filling up all of the violet as our paper is a violet color. So as I begin to farmer color, I will fill up all the areas of the tree I have created with my marker so I can create a textured look with my farmer coloring and almost looks a little bit like bark. Okay, let's keep going. So now I'm going to go ahead and take my tree and draw 2 more lines coming out of this small section. Go ahead and fill that in. I'm basically making my branches start to curve different directions. Now I'm going to go next door and do the same thing. I'm almost going off the edge of the paper. All right, these branches are curving this direction, so I'm going to keep going. This time they are going to go off the edge of the paper. Fill them in. And my last one, curve off the edge of the paper. If you need to pause the video at this time so that you can catch up, please feel free to do so. All right, let's go one more time with our branches. So I'm going to go ahead and go towards this branch that's curving on the right side of my paper, and I'm going to take my marker and I'm going to continue to make a couple more branches growing out of this guy. So I'm going to make a V that's going to run in to this branch. Then I'm going to make a line going out and take this V and have it go out. Take this line off to the edge, this side off to the edge. Fill it in. Farmer coloring, up and down the rows combined to fill up all the blank space of my paper. And let's go ahead and take this branch and let's just make it go all the way off the edge. I think I like how that looks. Okay. Feel free to pause the video if you need to catch up. Now that my tree is in the foreground and nice and large, I'm going to add a couple more items into my foreground. Let's add a couple of ghosts. Now, ghosts are typically white, but because white marker isn't a thing, we're gonna go ahead and use orange because it's Halloweenish. So I'm going to go ahead and take my orange marker and I'm going to make two ghosts. So I'm going to start next door to my tree, leave about a couple fingerprints of space, and I'm going to draw up and curve around and come back down. It's a very tall rainbow or a mountain line that curves. Both of the ends of my curve should go off the bottom of my paper. Now I'm going to touch the middle of this curve I just created, or ghost number 1, and make another big tall curve that's going to go up and come down straight and go off the paper. Now let's farmer color or fill in our ghosts. Remember, this is just a practice drawing. If you make a mistake, it's okay. Color over it, change it, add to it. It's no big deal. We will be painting and doing our final piece of art using perspective next class. All right, I'm going to continue to farmer color or combine in my ghosts. Now these ghosts are overlapping, so one ghost should look like it's standing in front and one ghost should look like it's standing behind. Okay, there's my two curved mountain lines for my ghosts. If you need to pause the video to finish coloring, please do so. Now I'm going to find my black and I'm going to trace around the curved line that I made. And see, look, I even made a small mistake. I can simply go over it and fill it in with some more black. Okay, I'm going to trace around ghost number 2. So both ghosts have a black outline. Then I'm just going to give them some eyes. So I'm going to make some ovals and fill them in. Make your ovals to scale or the appropriate size for the ghost that you drew. So your eyes shouldn't be super big or super small. I think I'm just going to stop there with eyes, but if you wanted to add a mouth, you could. Now let's talk about adding a full moon. So our ghosts and our trees are in the foreground and they are large, but our moon is going to be in the background. So it's going to be smaller. So I'm going to find a spot where my tree branches are open and I'm going to create a circle. My circle can fit about 4 fingerprints inside. I'm using yellow because lots of times fall moons or harvest moons are an orange-yellow color. So I'm going to combine and farmer color inside my circle or my moon. Okay. Next, I think I'm going to put a few stars in my background. Now, when we paint our spooky landscape next class, we will be using white for our stars, But we don't have white today, so I think I'm going to use this light blue. I'm simply going to put a few dots around in the background. So remember, stars are very far away, so they're going to look very small. Spread out your stars. Bring them all the way towards the bottom. Okay. And that's it for our spooky perspective practice drawing. If you need to go back in and fill in some more color, if you need to add more stars, if you want to put another branch on your tree, if you want to add things like a trick-or-treat bucket sitting at the bottom, or you want to put some bats flying in the sky, feel free to do so. If you have your practice perspective spooky drawing looking just like mine and you feel like it's done, make sure your name and class code is on the back and you can hand it into the back counter and grab a free time page if there's still time. If not, please wait for directions from the substitute. Thanks for being amazing artists. Great job today, and I will see you when I return.